Boards of Canada, also known as Hell Interface, is a Scottish electronic musical duo formed in 1986 by brothers Marcus Eoin and Michael Sanderson. They are categorized under the ambient electronic or IDM genre. Typically, when we think of electronic music, we picture people like Kraftwerk, Daft Punk, futuristic, technological, robotic, the music of tomorrow, so to speak. However, what makes Boards of Canada interesting is that they choose to deviate from the trending micro-edited breakbeats and went with a completely other direction in their music. Instead of portraying the future, their music typically evokes nostalgia in many of their listeners. They achieve this by using an unorthodox method of recording, through cheap instruments and broken, outdated gear. Many of the equipment they use range from old cassette players to reel-to-reel tapes and analog synths that help them build their signature sound. As many other IDM artists like Aphex Twin and Autechre focus mainly on percussion and less on melody, Boards of Canada switches these qualities around.
The beginnings of Boards of Canada trace back all the way to the early 80s. Both of the brothers wrote tracks that resemble the unique warp-sounding music found in many educational documentaries that influenced their music. Around 1981, they began making their own films using Super 8 film and created their own soundtracks. At 13, around 1984, the brothers were already making demo tapes and were producing songs with any instrument that was available to them. Around the mid to late 80s, Boards of Canada started to form a more traditional band, with Marcus initially as a bass guitar player. At this point, the band had a fairly traditional live setup: guitars, bass, keyboards, drummer, and occasional vocals, but the emphasis was on minimal atonal electronic songs, a sound that easily stood out amongst the abundance of traditional rock and hair metal bands the audiences in their local area were used to. Members of the group changed frequently, going through almost 14 members in this period. During the late 80s, Boards of Canada decided to create their own studio and label, Music 70.
Music by the Boards that were made under this label was distributed through friends and family of the group. It was at this period, starting in 1987 through 1996, that Boards of Canada released music through this label, with their debut album Catalog 3 all the way through the Old Tunes collection, which would eventually all become ultimate collector's pieces. Only a few of these albums are publicly available to listen, such as the Old Tunes collection and BOC Maxima, but original copies of these cassettes are extremely hard to come by, and in regards to the rest of these albums, they will most likely never be released to the public. The only remnants of these albums are 30-second samples of Wouldn't You Like to Be Free, Circle, and Duffy, all once provided from the now defunct Boards of Canada website.
Many elements that make Boards of Canada an interesting band are the themes of nostalgia, childhood, and coming of age found in their music. They also use many recurring motifs throughout their discographies. Some symbols they often put in their music are mathematical references: the number 6, 69, 70, 23, hexagons, turquoise, nature, native tribes, religious allusions, and references to David Koresh and the Branch Davidian cult. It's important to take note of these symbols because you will see them again.
Boards of Canada's first official EP, Twoism, was released in 1995 initially under their Music 70 label and was limited to roughly 100 copies. Boards of Canada's signatured, warbled, damaged, old sound and melodies set a new stage for electronic music, and was particularly deviant from other IDM names, which caught the attention of highly respected indie electronic label Scam Records, and landed them a recording contract. The original pressings of Twoism were few and hard to find, selling at online auctions for as much as $1,000. Marcus commented on the obscene prices for the original Twoism pressings, saying, "Some people have clearly too much money on their hands." Twoism was later re-released in 2002 under Warp Records. Boards of Canada was still at 3 members at the time of Twoism's release: Marcus Eoin, Michael Sanderson, and Christopher Horn. Christopher left Boards of Canada shortly after Twoism's release. In the 2002 re-release, Christopher's credit was removed upon his request. Some hit songs on Twoism are 69er, which is a reference to the number 69. Iced Cooley, See You Later, and the self-titled song. Some of the tracks on Twoism would be seen again in future albums such as High Scores, released in 1996.
High Scores was Boards of Canada's first album not released under their own label, Music 70. It would later be re-released in 2002 and 2005, fully remastered from the original DAT tapes in 2014. It featured some songs that were on Twoism, such as See You Later, but most importantly featured their first critically acclaimed single, Everything You Do Is a Balloon. On April 20, 1998, Boards of Canada released their first LP and most well-known album, Music Has the Right to Children, under the Scam and well-respected Warp Leader. Many of the songs on this album have interesting things to point out.
I love you.
Turquoise Hexagon Sun is a reference to Hexagon and is also the name of Boards of Canada's studio. The track Caney Industries refers to a company that was set up in Canada to create employment for a settlement of Cree Indians. The track Pete Standing Alone refers to an Alberton First Nations man who appeared in many films by the National Film Board of Canada, one of Boards of Canada's major inspirations. Roy G. Biv is possibly Boards of Canada's most recognized tune. The title is in reference to the colors of the rainbow. This track even inspired a Deadmau5 cover. Aquarius is another track that has many subliminal elements and samples, especially from Sesame Street. On November 2000, they released a new EP called In a Beautiful Place Out in the Country. It featured the first of what would be considered as vocals in their self-titled track. The EP also contained references to David Koresh and the Branch Davidians on the artwork. The EP serves as a precursor to what would be their next major release, Geodaddy.
Geodaddy is by far their most controversial album. It was released suddenly with very little promotion, and made its debut in churches in London, New York, Tokyo, Edinburgh, Paris, and Berlin. When asked about the album, Michael Sanderson said, Geodaddy was kind of exercising demons. And even after we'd set out to do a record like that, smack in the middle of working on it, 9/11 happened. I remember there were a few of us in that studio that day, and we just ended up glued to the TV for the whole day. I think the months after that pushed us into making a darker record, as I'm sure it did with a lot of other bands. Geodaddy is the album with the most mathematical, biblical, and even satanic references. In fact, the satanic material on the album has raised concerns in some fans. An Amazon reviewer complains, "A person can't listen to a BOC disc without feeling that there's something baleful in their music. These guys are weirdos from the interviews they've done, which doesn't take anything away from what they are maybe trying to accomplish, which is make good music. I believe they are trying to do something more than just make good music. They are working for the side that I'm not on, so it would be deleterious to my soul to listen to the influential grooves they lay down. The evil is blatant. The album contains 23 tracks, which could be another reference to the 23 Enigma. Some timestamps of certain tracks yield interesting and possible correlations to its corresponding Bible verses, where some reference the Alpha and Omega, another track on the album, the number 6, and the root of David. The song Beware the Friendly Stranger is a short vignette that is popular for being used in the animated series by David Firth, Salad Fingers. Gyroscope features the Conet Project, which compiles various number stations and shortwave radio transmissions. The song Julie and Candy features a sample taken from The Season of the Witch, released in 1972. The smallest weird number is a mathematical reference to the number 70, which is the smallest weird number. It features a sample from the song When the Music Starts to Play by the Incredible String Band. The song 1969 is another song that references the number 69. 1969 is also the year that the use of CS gas was banned by the US government against foreign enemies. The same gas was used in the Waco massacre. The song also has lyrical content that says, although not a follower of David Koresh, he is a devoted Branch Davidian. You Could Feel the Sky is a darker track near the end of the album that has backmasked vocals that say God with horns, God with hooves, which has been interpreted by some to be a satanic reference and others to be a reference to Wicca, a neo-pagan religion descended from ancient Celtic polytheistic beliefs, or Pan, the Greek god of nature. The album ends with a dark ambient tune, Corsair, and ends with the very last track, Magic Window, which is literally 1 minute and 46 seconds of complete silence. In fact, in the 3-piece vinyl version of GeoGotti, the final side is devoted entirely to Magic Window, which has no groove, but an outline of a 3-piece family. Also on the vinyl, instead of listing 33 1/3 or 45 RPM, it lists 162.225 MHz, which is a frequency used in the military or Coast Guard, and in the UK for private mobile radio services. An interesting thing to note is that the length of silence added to the 22 non-silent tracks of the album yield a total album time of 66 minutes and 6 seconds. The ISRC code, which is an international standard code for uniquely identifying sound recordings and music recordings, on the GeoGotti CD, provides this string, which is an invalid ISRC. The binary number is 666 in decimal. And when you rip all the tracks to WAV files, the entire album adds up to 666.8 megabytes. Also on the now completely blank Music 70 website, it lists this track as Magic Window Fnord, which is another reference to the Illuminatus trilogy, Fnord being a word people in general have trained to not see. Instead, it merely induces a vague feeling of anxiety in the reader.
Their next album was The Campfire Head Face, released in October 2005. The album relied much less on synths and more on guitar work and their own samples. According to the brothers, the North American landscape and its music heavily influenced the direction of the Campfire Head bass. This time, we set out to make something simple that had shades of a road movie soundtrack, like the musical score to a surreal journey across a late 70s North American desert highway. That quote was said by Michael Sanderson. The Campfire Head bass was a big detour around Boards of Canada's signature sound. Some big hits on the record are Davian Cowboy, which would also be considered Boards of Canada's first mainstream single, and the first song to have an official music video. Trans-Canada Highway would be their next EP, released on May 2006, originally scheduled for release on June 6, 2006. 666. The album cover is in direct reference to a 1977 Dodge instruction manual. On May 11, 2006, a Warp email revealed a new Board of Canada microsite, warprecords.com/666. The website had high and low bandwidth options. Each would lead to a video that featured cut-up video segments from multiple Boards of Canada's interlude tracks. The mood of the album is aiming toward the soundtrack of a road trip. And then, finally, we have their last album to date, Tomorrow's Harvest. The reveal for the new album was a long and complicated one. April 20, 2013 would mark the 6th annual Record Store Day, a global celebration of independent record stores where labels would release limited edition material. On this day, a mysterious Boards of Canada 12-inch was found. This would mark the beginning of this mysterious 36-digit code separated by 6 groups of 6 digits. The X's would mark the position where the 6-digit code is placed. According to a store employee, the record was hand-delivered by a Warp Records representative and is one of only 6 in the world. There are 5 other vinyls secretly placed in record shops around the world. The first was found in Other Music in the US by Reddit user Lil Keiki. 2 weeks after finding the record, the user put it up in an online auction and was sold on eBay for $900. And later resold to someone in the UK for $1,150. The second record was found in Rough Trade East shop in London. The third was found in Avalanche Records in Edinburgh. In an interview with Robert Ham for Noisy/Vice, he says that there was a yellow posted sticker on the record saying "Sell me." It was sold to the first person who came in after it arrived. The barcode is free. Music has the right to children's CD, so we sold it for £7.99. Record 4 was found by Discogs user I'm Politov. Records 5 and 6 has still not been found to this day. Meanwhile, on YouTube, official accounts representing Boards of Canada have been commenting on Boards of Canada fan videos that eventually led to a private video by Hell interface called Nuevas Semillas. This video contains a link to a fourth video called CSCH that revealed a new code and position. On April 23, 2013, BBC Radio 1 broadcasted the code in the 6th position of the key. On the evening of the same day, NPR broadcasted another code on All Things Considered. The position would later be shown in a mysterious video projection on April 26th in the Loading Bay Art Gallery in London, revealing the first 6 numbers in key. In addition to this, the same clip has been aired on Adult Swim. The fifth code initiated on April 26 when the official Boards of Canada's YouTube account updated its top 3 favorite videos with Tourism fan videos. This led to a discovery on the Tourism message board that the banner art has changed, and now there is an overlay from the CSCH video. Royce Osborne found something interesting when he ran the Unix strings command when downloading the banner GIF. The string commands is a Unix command that finds and prints text embedded in binary files. Of the text in the GIF image, there are 2 URLs that lead to private tracks on the official Boards of Canada SoundCloud. Both tracks have the title of the Greek uppercase sigma, which means sum, and has album art of a signal mixer that sums 2 inputs. By summing the 2 tracks, we get this. Another string in the binary says, "There is another," followed by GIF 89A, which signals the start of binary code for a GIF image. Copying and pasting the content starting from GIF 89A into a hex editor and saving as a new file will give you another GIF image, which reveals the position of that code. The final piece of the code rests on the mysterious website that all Boards of Canada's websites point to, cosechatransmisiones.com. The website appears to be a terminal that prompts for a password. Viewing the page source code would reveal a code position and a JavaScript file named x.js. Upon examining the HTTP response headers on the index.php page, there is an unusual entry named Nuevas Semillas, which contains base64 code that when decoded reveals a URL that leads to an MP3 file that plays the final code. Compiling all of the codes together without slashes is the correct password to the website. It leads us to a video which reveals the next album's title and release date. Tomorrow's Harvest, released for June 10th, another reference to the number 6010.
The ride doesn't end here. After a while of silence on all social media, Boards of Canada posts a mysterious status on their Facebook page. At the precise time and location, Boards of Canada aired the music video for the single off of Tomorrow's Harvest, Reach for the Dead. The Hell Interface YouTube channel comments on the music video for Reach for the Dead, and Boards of Canada's official Twitter account later posts this image. The image contains EXIF data that reveals the exact GPS location: Hacienda Road in Newberry Springs, California. Hell Interface posts a video with the title Look Sad Reel, which shows a distorted commercial from the 80s for Lake Dolores Water Park.
The family fun place that offers relaxation and incredible thrills. Lake Dolores, the magical water world that features the most exciting high-speed water slides. The family fun place that offers relaxation.
Look Sad Reel is just an anagram for Lake Dolores, which was once a thriving water park in Southern California, until it was abandoned after professional football player Ron Brown led a failed effort to turn the park into a camp for disadvantaged kids. Some parts, such as the Big Bopper water slide, was dismantled and shipped to Canada. The event that was held on May 22nd at Lake Dolores Water Park was a listening party for Tomorrow's Harvest, administered by members of WARP. The brothers themselves did not appear in the listening party, however. After a live album broadcast on YouTube by WARP a week before the release, the viral marketing campaign for Tomorrow's Harvest ends. The album itself seems to take special interest in the abandoned, and seems to be an album where tracks are more orchestrated. As Marcus explains, it's about finding something beautiful in desolation. Something draws us to the atmosphere of destroyed, abandoned places. It's a bittersweet thing that we've always tried to achieve in our music. It seems too obvious to make music that is purely dark, that just seems too easy and naive. And this ends the entire discography of BOC so far. Of course, there is a major anticipation for an upcoming album, but April 20th of this year marks their 20th anniversary of Music Has the Right to Children, so we may be expected to see some activity for that. Despite being underground, Boards of Canada are pretty well known in the electronic genre and has inspired many artists after, such as Tycho, Deadmau5, Boreal Network, Christ, Flying Lotus, Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails, Pilot Red Sun, and Disaster Piece.